In the dying light of a winter hearth, a king leans over a map of distant rivers and hostile borders. His breath fogs the parchment. One finger traces the road his banners will ride when the mud hardens and the barley sprouts. Tonight he does not dream of glory. He counts wagons, horseshoes, and the oaths of men who have never seen the enemy's face. This is how empires begin, not with a trumpet, but with a quiet promise spoken across candle flame. Autumn had already stripped the oaks when the first letters left the royal scriptorium. Sealed in scarlet wax, they slid into the saddlebags of couriers who knew every ford between palace and province. By Christmas, the great hall crackled with anticipation. Torch smoke curled beneath vaulted beams as the king rose. His voice, low as distant thunder, named the season, the enemy, and the day the host would march. Every earl, every abbot, every master of a military order felt the words settle on his shoulders like chainmail. Across the realm, snow muffled the clang of preparation. In stone keeps and timbered manors, stewards tallied sacks of oats and barrels of salt pork. Armorers worked through the short days, hammering dents from helms that had lain idle since the last crusade. Wives stitched linen into padded jacks. Priests copied indulgences onto slips of parchment no bigger than a man's palm. Winter was the womb of war. When the first cuckoo called, the pyramid began to move. 2 moons before blades were due to flash, the king's heralds unfurled proclamations in market squares. Their voices rang against church doors. By the grace of God and the command of the crown, let every tenant-in-chief repair to the meadow of St. Aldhelm, on the feast of St. John, armed and arrayed as his tenure demands. The words rippled downward like a stone dropped in a dark mere. At the apex stood the magnates, men whose names carried the weight of centuries. An archbishop in cloth of gold, a duke whose beard was white as ermine, a count whose grandfather had bled at Acre. Each received the summons, kissed the seal, and turned to the next ring of the wheel. Their own vassals, bannerets and household knights were roused by horn and hoof. Messengers galloped along frost-rimed lanes, scattering chickens and curses. By nightfall, every tower in the Shire knew that the king rode to war. In the solar of a border fortress, Sir Baldwin de Roche read the parchment twice. He had 40 days to turn oaths into steel. First he summoned his steward. "Open the inner store. I want every lance checked for rot." Then his constable, "Ride to Sir Hugh at Dawnford. Tell him the king asks 20 lances. Tell him I will owe him a favour he may name at court." Last came the hardest task. He walked the gallery where his younger sons practiced swordplay. One would ride with him, one must stay to guard the harvest and the women. Lower still, the chain tightened. A knight with 3 manors called his 4 villains who held by sergeanty, armed with jack and bow. They met at dawn in the tilting yard, breath pluming like war horses. The knight weighed their courage against their plough teams and chose the 2 whose wives could spare them longest. Across 1,000 such yards, the same silent bargaining took place, land against life, harvest against honor. Not every man waited for parchment. In the free towns, the bell in the market cross tolled thrice. The sheriff read the king's commission beneath a canopy of blue and gold. Every guildsman between 16 and 60 stepped forward to show helm, jack, and bill. The wool merchant's son, the blacksmith's apprentice, the tanner who stank of oak bark, each laid his weapons on the cobbles. The sheriff walked the ranks, tapping shoulders. 500 archers, 200 light horse. Those not chosen returned to their looms relieved. Those chosen discovered that pride tastes metallic on the tongue. On the wind-swept downs of the assembly ground, spring mud churned to paste beneath iron-shod hooves. Pennons snapped above pavilions bright as stained glass. Heralds in parti-coloured coats cried the roll. Montfort, Bigod, de Lacy. Each name summoned a knot of steel. Knights in mail that flashed like fish scales. Squires leading destriers caparisoned in crimson. Pages no taller than a spear clutching bundles of lances. Behind them marched the horizontal host, yeomen in green and white, their longbows unstrung across shoulders broad from wrestling sheaves. Mercenaries lounged at the fringe, Brabançons in brigandines, Genoese crossbowmen chewing garlic, their quarrels fletched with goose feathers dyed blood red. The king rode the lines at dusk. He saw the patchwork of Christendom, a Breton lance beside a Gascon vantane, a Frisian pike among English bowmen. He saw boys polishing vambracies too large for their wrists, and grey-bearded sergeants teaching them to couch a lance without dropping it in the mire. He saw fear and hunger and pride braided tight as any bowstring. That night the campfires burned low. Men spoke little. Somewhere a lute plucked the melody of a song every soldier knew by heart, about a girl left by a willow tree, about a king who never came home. The wind carried the smell of horse sweat, wet wool, and the faint iron promise of tomorrow. When the sun rose, the host moved. Wagons groaned under their burdens. The ground shook with the rhythm of 1,000 mailed feet. Above them, the royal banner lifted, gold lilies on azure, a lion rampant, a black eagle. Whatever device the king had chosen to remind the world that he was coming. Behind the silk and bullion marched the real army, a living chain forged link by link from palace to ploughland, from archbishop's mitre to miller's billhook. They marched toward a horizon no map had yet named, toward rivers that would run red before harvest, toward songs that would be sung long after their bones were dust. And somewhere in the creak of saddle leather and the thud of hooves on the old Roman road, the Middle Ages themselves marched with them, seasonal, brutal, glorious, and already counting the cost. This was how a medieval army was raised, not by magic, nor by the wave of a single sword, but by a winter of whispers, a spring of summons, and a summer of men who discovered that duty and desire can wear the same face. The banners rose, the trumpets spoke, Europe trembled, and the long road to war began.